are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for all right, and we are back here on the GSMC.
Keep yourself in the loop of everything football on the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast. The latest news on and off the field, be it college football, Big Ten, SEC, Big 12, Pac-12, ACC to the NFL. We've got you covered. Listen to the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast.
And welcome everybody to another edition of the GSMC Football Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. As always, I'm your host, Kenneth Grunfelder, and it's great to have you guys here on this Monday, November 4th. We have a lot to talk about on the show today. Before I get into that, just want to remind you guys, as always, to tip or donate and get your comments recognized. Make sure to hit that super chat button in the chat to help create a super chat of any thought or comment you may have throughout the live broadcast that you want me to acknowledge. It makes the show more lively, more entertaining between myself, the host, and you guys, the viewers. We appreciate your guys' viewership each and every day, so any contribution you can make to the show means the world to us as we put out content for you guys each and every day. And also, the other way to help out the show is by going to the link at the bottom of the show segment on the ticker, gsmcpodcast.net. That is gsmcpodcast.net. So, let's get into what we are going to discuss for today. So we're going to start off the show. We're going to talk about the Lions-Packers game from yesterday in that bad weather. The Lions winning that game 24-14. So we'll get into the specifics of that. In the second part of the show, we'll get into talking about the overtime win for the Rams against the Seahawks. The Rams winning that game 26-20 and getting back to 500. So we'll talk about that. We'll also get into discussing the Bills, talking about their win over the Dolphins. It was a dicey game, and Tyler Bass was the hero at the end. So we'll get into discussing that game as well. We'll also talk about the Falcons-Cowboys game, Cowboys losing that one and dropping to 3-5. We'll talk about what happened in that. And then we will preview tonight's game between the Kansas City Chiefs and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. That game will be played in Arrowhead, and that will end off Week 9 in the NFL. So let's get into the first topic, which is talking about the Lions and their win over the Packers. So like I said, it was a bad weather game. It was rainy, windy. It was just, it was not the best conditions. But it didn't matter for the Lions. This was actually their first, I believe, was it their first outdoor game of the season? And it didn't really matter to them. They did what they've been doing this whole season, and that's win, basically. Their only loss came against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and that was early on in the year. But other than that, they have been rolling. And I just want to double-check just to make sure. Yeah, that is wow. Yeah, that's their first outdoor game of the season, because they were home for the Rams in Week 1, home against the Lions. Then they were at the Cardinals, home against the Seahawks, at the Cowboys, at the Vikings, home against the Titans. And yeah, that was their first outdoor game of the season, and it didn't matter. But yeah, they're 7-1 on the year. Only loss came against the Bucs. And coming into this game, we weren't sure if Jordan Love was going to play. He was banged up, of course, with the groin injury, and still was not 100% in this game. And it looked like at one point Malik Willis was going to come in, but Jordan Love did play the whole game. And yeah, so both teams, they scored on their first drives. Packers went right down the field. They went 14 plays, 63 yards, almost 8 minutes of time of possession. They converted on a 4th and 1. There was a direct snap to Tucker Kraft. You had another pass by Love to Christian Watson for 19 yards. Josh Jacobs had a good first half, not so much in the second half, but that's also because the Packers were playing from behind. And Brandon McManus kicked a 30-yard field goal to make it 3-0. And then the Lions, on their first drive, they went down the field. They went 13 plays, 70 yards, a little over 7 minutes of time of possession down the field. And on 4th and goal, Jared Goff connected with Amon-Ra St. Brown for a 3-yard touchdown. Now, it was 4th and goal from the 5, and the Packers were offside, so that, moved the ball up a little bit. And, talking to some people while I was watching this game, we were saying, just go for the field goal. Why are you not taking the points? It's a chip shot field goal. I know the weather's bad, but that encroachment penalty did help them. And then, like I said, Goff connected with Amon-Ra St. Brown. And you had a feeling he was going to catch that. Goff was going to him the whole way, and he made a nice catch. And interesting touchdown celebration. He did a headstand. But yeah, that put the Lions up 7-3. Both teams then punted. The Packers then put together another drive. They got all the way down to the Lions 28, and McManus missed the 46-yarder, so it stayed at 7-3. And then the Lions kicked the field goal on their next drive. You had a 26-yard reception to Amon-Ra St. Brown. They got all the way down to the Packers 9, and Jake Bates kicked a 27-yard field goal, so that made it 10-3. But then Jordan Love, and this is something that's been a problem for him this year, and that's interceptions. And he was trying to set up a screen to Josh Jacobs, and it was just a horrible play. And he ended up getting intercepted by Kirby Joseph, returned 27 yards to the house, and that made it 17-3. And then at that point, you thought, yeah, the Lions, they're in full control of this game. Because then immediately out of the half, to start the second half, they scored a touchdown to make it 24-3. And yeah, it was a Jahmyr Gibbs 15-yard touchdown. That was on 4th and 1. But before that, though, Brian Branch, late in the first half, got charged with an unsportsmanlike conduct penalty. Well, actually, yeah, it was an unsportsmanlike conduct penalty that ended up leading to him getting disqualified because he, made contact with Bo Melton, helmet to helmet, and he got ejected from the game. That was one ejection that happened. We'll talk about another one in the next segment. But, yeah, Brian Branch got thrown out, and you thought, well, that's one of the Lions' best defensive players, so that could be big for the Packers, but it really didn't matter. So, because, yeah, the Packers, they were back-to-back penalties. Well, actually, 2 penalties. There was unsportsmanlike conduct, but there was also, the unnecessary roughness. So that was basically 30 yards of penalties, and the Packers still didn't get any points out of it. So, yeah, so Brian Branch got thrown out. That was a little bit before the end of the first half. But, yeah, the Lions were up 24-3, a couple of punts, and then the Packers, they did put together a drive that led to another McManus field goal. He had 32 yards to Jaden Reed from Jordan Love. A lot of botched snaps in this, over the course of these games on Sunday. But partly because, the weather was bad. But, yeah, no, the Lions, the Packers were able to recover these fumbles, and that led to McManus kicking a 38-yard field goal. So that made it 24-6. Yeah, the Lions punted again. Packers turned it over on downs. It was 4th and 1 from the Lions' 9. Josh Jacobs ran the ball, and he ended up getting stuffed. He was just short. And, Packers turned it over on downs. The Lions punted. Packers then put together a touchdown drive. You had Emmanuel Wilson from 2 yards out score. And the Packers also got the 2-point conversion to Christian Watson. But it didn't matter. Lions iced the game, and they end up winning 24-14. Jared Goff, 18 of 22. He started off the game, I believe, 11 of 11. But, yeah, 18 of 22, 145 yards, 1 touchdown, no interceptions, was sacked 1 time. 73 yards on the ground by David Montgomery, 65 yards on the ground by Jahmyr Gibbs, and the touchdown. Amon-Ra St. Brown had 7 for 56, 7 receptions for 56 yards and a touchdown. Sam Laporta, 2 for 28. Like I said, Kirby Joseph had the pick 6, which was costly. Jordan Love, 23 of 39, 273 yards, no touchdowns and a pick. Josh Jacobs, like I said, got off to a good start, but was quiet in the second half again because the Packers were down pretty much the whole game. He had 95 yards on the ground. Emmanuel Wilson had 28 with the touchdown. Jaden Reed, 5 receptions for 113 yards. Christian Watson 3 for 37. And, yeah, the Packers had 1 sack of Jared Goff. The Lions, no sacks of Jordan Love in this game. But, listen, they continue to win games, and I'm curious to see if they'll add a pass rusher because that's something that they definitely need. But they just continue to win. And right now, they are the class of the NFC. And they could beat anybody. They really can. I have this team going to the Super Bowl, and right now, that looks great. I mean, now we got to see what happens when we get to the postseason. But right now, they hold the best record in the NFC. So if you want to get to the Super Bowl, you're going to have to go through Detroit, as of right now. Now, things can change. It could end up going through Washington, the way the Commanders are playing right now. But the Lions right now, they are the class of the NFC. And look, the Packers are a good team, but there's some things they got to clean up. And also their quarterback is not healthy right now. So Jordan Love, he's got to get healthy. Now, the good thing for the Packers is the bye week comes at a perfect time. So they could rest up and then come back for week 11 and get things going again. But the Lions right now, they're the better team. They are the better team. And, these two teams did split last year. The Lions got the best of them at Lambeau. Packers got the best of them at Ford Field. So, yeah, we'll see what happens when they play later this season on a Thursday night. So, but yeah, Packers not the Packers. The Lions right now are the class of the NFC. They could beat you in so many different ways. Their offense is one of the best in the league, and once they get Jameson Williams back, they'll that's another playmaker to add. But between the running game and Jared Goff, I mean, this offense can put up points with anybody. And comparing them to the top teams in the AFC, I mean, the Ravens right now, their offense has been unbelievable as well. The defense is still a little bit of a concern. Now, when those two teams played last year, the Ravens got the best of them and they won by a lot. But I think it'd be a little different when they play each other again because the Ravens' defense is not as good as last year. And then you got the Chiefs. The Chiefs' offense has been struggling, but their defense is still really good. So we'll see how it all unfolds. But those three teams, those are the top three teams in the NFL right now. And we'll get into the power rankings during the week. But that's your top three. In no particular order at the moment, but yeah, it's the Lions, it's the Ravens, and it's the Chiefs. Those are the top three teams. So, but let me know what you guys think about this game between the Lions and the Packers. What were your takeaways from it? Again, the Packers just lost to a better team. I think when we see these two teams play again, maybe the results are a little bit different. But the bye week does come at a very good time for them. So, but anyways, we're going to take our first break. When we come back, we will talk about the overtime game between the Rams and the Seahawks and talk about the Rams getting back to 500. So make sure to stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign.
I wanna be the greatest. Everybody on the fake shit. I look around and feel like everybody is the fakest. I make this every day and I'm impatient, hoping one day I blow up from the basement. Statement, the top is so vacant. I don't hear shit that I think is amazing. Waiting for my day when I'm playing sold out shows for 1,000 faces. Hey, give me that crown, get in my way and to be put down. It ain't your place, all this my town. If I want that shit, then I'll get it right now. I'm losing it, the noose it fits. I'm losing shit, a stupid myth. You choose to live or choose to dip. You choose to fight or lose your grip and lose a gift. Oh,
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind?
All right, and we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for the second part of the show, we're going to now get into talking about the Seahawks-Rams game from yesterday, game that went into overtime. Game got off to a slow start, and to be honest, though, even going back and rewatching the highlights, I mean, the Seahawks really should have won this game. And if it was not for 2 red zone interceptions by Geno Smith, Seahawks would have won this game, really. He ended up finishing the game throwing 3 picks, but there was a lot of opportunities for the Seahawks to put this game away, but they just didn't. And one of the red zone interceptions ended up turning into a pick 6, going the other way. So, but yeah, this game got off to a slow start. I mean, the Seahawks were up. I think they started off the game, they were up 10-0. And early on in this game, Puka Nacua, we talked about Brian Branch getting ejected. Puka Nacua ended up getting ejected as well from the game. So his day, I mean, after coming back last week, and we weren't sure if he was going to play because he tweaked his knee again in practice. And you heard, oh, it's not a big deal. Then you heard he's going to try to play, and he did end up playing, but then he ended up getting ejected from the game. But, yeah, there was an interception in the first quarter, and there was just all punts. Now, like I said, Nacua got thrown out early on in this game. He ended up getting shoved by a Seahawks player, and then he ended up throwing a punch back, and then he ended up getting ejected because of that. I had to go and see that on Twitter or on X because I had no idea that happened. Because we were focusing on the other games, but we did get scoring. The Seahawks were up 13-3 going into the half. Yeah, there was no scoring in the first quarter, but then the Rams actually got on the board. They had a 38-yard field goal by Josh Carty. So that made it 3-0. Then the Seahawks went down the field, 9 plays, 70 yards, and Geno Smith connected with Tyler Lockett for a 30-yard touchdown. So that made it 6-3. Then Matthew Stafford threw an interception, trying to hit Puka Nacua. And, ends up getting picked off. But, actually, this is where it happened. This was on the interception. So Nacua ended up getting thrown out of the game on this play. And, then the Seahawks, they turned that into a touchdown. Jackson Smith-Njigba had a huge day. It was 1st and 20, 46-yard reception by him. And then on 2nd and 10, Geno connected with Smith-Njigba once again for a 24-yard touchdown. Just bad defense by the Rams, allowing the Seahawks to get down there so fast. But, so it was 13-3 at the half. Then the Rams opened up the second half with a nice drive. They went 11 plays, 75 yards. Kyron Williams fumbled on this drive, but Cooper Kupp was right there to recover the fumble. They got down into the red zone, and then Matthew Stafford connected with Demarcus Robinson for a 1-yard touchdown. And he had a big day as well. He stepped up. It was 13-10. Seahawks then punted, and then the Rams ended up tying the game. Another Carty 21-yard field goal. So, game was tied. And then the Seahawks are driving. They're driving. They get down into the red zone. They're at the Rams 6. Geno tries to connect with Smith-Njigba, and he gets picked off by Kinchins, who had 2 picks on the day. He returns it all the way for a touchdown, and that made it 20-13. So if that doesn't happen, I mean, the Seahawks could at least get a field goal on that drive, whatever. They get nothing, and the Rams get 7 points going the other way. Then, Seahawks punt. Rams have their punt blocked, and Geno throws another pick. They get down to the Rams 4, and he gets intercepted by Kinchins again. And more punts after that. But then they went 8 plays, 73 yards down the field. And Geno connected. So on 4th and 5, he connects with Smith-Njigba for 29 yards, and then he connects with Smith-Njigba for a 14-yard touchdown. So that made it 20-20 all. Rams then punted, and then the Seahawks just kneeled it down, and they went to overtime. Seahawks got the ball to start. Didn't catch the ending of it because I was on my way home. I was out. And the Seahawks were driving once again. Yet another big play to Smith-Njigba. They got all the way down to the Rams' 16-yard line. They went for it on 4th and 1 with Kenneth Walker. He gets stuffed. And then the Rams go 4 plays, 83 yards down the field for a game-winning touchdown. You had 24 yards to Tyler Johnson, which I don't know how Tyler Johnson caught that because there were 3 Seahawks players right there, and Stafford fit into that tight window. Then he had 16 yards to Tutu Atwell, and then another 4 yards to Kyron Williams, and then Stafford connects with Demarcus Robinson. This was an unbelievable catch, a one-handed catch. I mean, not as good as, of course, Garrett Wilson's catch on Thursday, but this was a heck of a catch by him, and that was for 39 yards, and that was the game winner. And the Rams win, and they get back to 500. They get back to 500. So the Rams looked like they were going nowhere with all the injuries, but they look like a different team now that they got Cooper Kupp back. Puka Nacua, of course, got ejected, but he had a good game last week. And I think one of the guys that benefits the most from these two guys being back is Demarcus Robinson, because he turned into the number 1 receiver when these guys went down, and he really didn't do much while they were gone. But now everybody's focusing their attention on Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua, and Matthew Stafford trusts DeMarcus Robinson, and he makes plays. So, and speaking of the Rams, let's look at their offensive stats. So Stafford went 25 of 44 for 298 yards, 2 touchdowns and a pick. I mean, before last week, he only had 3 touchdown passes. Now he has 6 touchdown passes in the last 2 weeks. So, his numbers are again more respectable, looking more like the Stafford that we're accustomed to seeing. Kyron Williams, 22 carries for 69 yards. Cooper Kupp had 11 receptions for 104 yards. Demarcus Robinson, 6 for 94 and 2 touchdowns. Tyler Johnson had 3 for 38. Cameron Kinchins had 2 interceptions on the day. Of course, one of them was returned for a touchdown. Rams defense, 7 sacks in this game. So not only did they get turnovers, but they create turnovers, they also got after the quarterback in this game. And for Geno Smith, 21 of 34, 363 yards, 3 touchdowns, but 3 interceptions, and they proved costly. Kenneth Walker, only 83 yards on the ground in this game. Jackson Smith and Jigba. DK Metcalf did not play in this game. He had a big day. 7 receptions, 180 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Tyler Lockett had 3 for 63 and a touchdown. Seahawks defense, no sacks in the game. So that's big for the Rams. And, you're going to be getting more guys back on that offensive line. They're a different team right now. And where we sit currently with the NFC West, they're in second place. The Cardinals right now are in first. They won against the Bears yesterday. They're 5-4. But the Rams are right there. And they are going to go on a run. They are going to go on a run. They look like a completely different team now with their guys back. Obviously, Puka Nacua will be playing next week. The injection, you didn't want to see that, but it ended up not costing them. They ended up getting the win. And they will be taking on the Dolphins next week. For the Seahawks, as a tough loss. They're in last place now with that loss. Back-to-back home losses for them. But they go into the bye. And when they come out of the bye, they take on the 49ers. But this NFC West, it's going to be very close to the end. It's going to be interesting to see how it all plays out. Because now the 49ers are going to be getting healthy on offense, and hopefully some of the other guys on defense come back. The Rams are getting guys back. The Cardinals, right now are in first place. So it's going to be close to the end, like I said. But this was a big win for the Rams. They get back to 500. And I had this team making the playoffs, and I feel very confident that they could do that right now. I mean, it's going to be tough because the NFC is pretty jam-packed right now with teams. It's going to be tough to make the wild card because right now you have the Vikings, the Eagles, and who's the last wild card team? The last wild card team with the NFC is the Packers. And you got 2 6-2 teams in the Vikings and the Eagles, and then you got the Packers at 6-3, and then you got a bunch of 4-4 teams. So right now, the only pathway at the moment is probably the division. So, but we'll see. There's still a lot of season left to be played. But I think the Rams could definitely, with what they have left on their schedule, they do play the Eagles, and that's at home. So that's a game they have to win. If they could win that game, next 2 weeks they got the Dolphins at home. They're at the Patriots. The Dolphins game is going to be tough because Tua being back, they look like a different team, even though they've lost their last 2 games. And we'll talk about them in a second, but in the next segment. But the Dolphins is going to be a tough game. The Patriots, they should win. Then you got the Eagles at home. We'll see. If you can win that, you can be in good shape. But yeah, they could definitely go on a run. And for the Seahawks, it's just their season's been kind of a roller coaster. They got off to a 3-0 start, then they lost their next 3. They beat the Falcons, and then they lost their next 2 home games. So, then after that, they got a tough finish to their schedule. They got the Cardinals twice, the Niners, the Packers, the Vikings, the Rams to finish up the season. So, a lot of tough games on that schedule. So, I don't really like their chances, but who knows? But I think some of the positives you could take away from that game is Jackson Smith and Jigba. Without DK Metcalf, he really showed out in this game in his second year. So that's encouraging. But those interceptions really cost them in this game. Because like I said, 7 points going the other way. So, but the Rams get a big win. Seahawks, they drop another one at home. Let me know what you guys think about this game. What were your takeaways from it? Let me know in the comments. So, before we go to break, just want to remind you guys once again, to tip or donate, get your comments recognized, make sure to click that super chat button in the chat. Any thought or comment you may have throughout the live broadcast that you want to see me acknowledge. Just makes the show more lively, more entertaining between myself, the host, and you guys, the viewers. We appreciate your guys' viewership each and every day, so any contribution you can make to the show means the world to us as we put out content for you guys each and every day. And also, the other way to help out the show is by going to the link at the bottom of the show segment on the ticker, GSMCpodcast.net. That is GSMCpodcast.net. So, when we come back from our next break, we will talk about the Bills-Dolphins game. We'll talk about the ending to that. Big AFC East matchup. We'll get into that and discuss what happened when we return. So with that being said, stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast.
Looking for your daily fix of sports talk without having to pay for it? GSMC Sports Network is available on YouTube. Just search GSMC Sports Network. Get your fix of daily sports talk shows on YouTube, absolutely free. NFL, college football, NBA, MLB, MMA, UFC, fantasy football, and so much more. GSMC Sports Network has shows running all day long, with new sports shows starting every 2 hours. Just like on your favorite cable sports channel, except GSMC Sports Network is absolutely free. Just search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube to catch one of your new favorite shows, like the GSMC College Football Podcast, Chip Shot Football Podcast, Hoops and Heels Women's Sports Podcast, GSMC Basketball Podcast, and so many more. Check it out for yourself. GSMC Sports Network, now available on YouTube absolutely free. Search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube right now.
All right, and we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for the third part of the show, we're going to now get into talking about the Bills-Dolphins game from yesterday. But I did want to bring up a couple of things, well, at least just one thing. As of this morning, the Saints have fired head coach Dennis Allen. We'll talk about the game tomorrow, but the Saints did end up losing to the Panthers. And the Saints were 2-0. And they had a plus 62 point differential after the first 2 weeks of the season. And since then, it's just been a downward spiral. They're now 2-7 on the season, and it was time. It was definitely time. And it's the Saints are in such a weird spot right now, and they've kind of been in like no man's land, I guess that's accurate to say, for a little bit now since Drew Brees retired. They've been trying to compete, but they haven't made the playoffs since he retired. And Sean Payton then leaving, it's just the Saints are not looking good right now, and I don't really know what they're gonna do. We'll talk about them tomorrow and the game, but it's just they were 2-0, and I was like, oh, maybe the Saints, they finished the season strong, last year. I guess maybe that's carrying over into this season, but that was too soon to say. because then they ended up losing their next 7 games. So, after scoring 40 points their first 2 weeks. But, yeah, that's I just wanted to bring that up. So, Dennis Allen has been relieved of his duties as the head coach of the Saints after their most recent loss to the Carolina Panthers. But let's get into the game that I wanted to discuss in this segment, and that's the Bills-Dolphins game. So, Dolphins coming in at 2-5. This was Tua's second game back from injury, and look, the Dolphins, they look like a different team offensively with him being back, and it just unfortunately for them, it did not go their way. It did not go their way. Sorry, I got some things mixed up there because I thought but that was the final part of the show. I had a graphic up, but anyways, so the Dolphins, they look like a different team with him offensively. They're moving the ball, and it just didn't matter. He finished with 230 yards passing, 231 yards passing. Last week was 234. This week was 231. He had 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. And they ran the ball decent, 149 yards on the ground, and a touchdown by Achane. Tyreek Hill had 80 yards receiving, but Josh Allen and that Buffalo Bills offense was just too much, and the Dolphins had an opportunity to win. This game could have went to overtime, but they ended up the Bills ended up making a 61-yard field goal by Tyler Bass, and they lose 30-27. Both teams exchanged punts to start off the game. Then the Bills, they put together a drive that led to a 40-yard field goal by Tyler Bass. Then the Dolphins responded with a field goal of their own, a 39-yarder by Jason Sanders. And then there was an interception by Josh Allen. Another pick. He was trying to hit Keon Coleman, got picked off by Jalen Ramsey. And this was and they were driving. This is at the Dolphins' 11-yard line. And he ends up getting picked off. Then Tua and the Dolphins, they put together a nice drive, 14 plays, 97 yards, almost 8.5 minutes of time possession down the field. And Tua connected with Devon Achane for a 14-yard touchdown. So that made it 10-3. And then the Bills, before the end of the half, Tyler Bass kicks a 49-yard field goal. So it's 10-6 at the half. Then the Dolphins end up fumbling. Raheem Mostert fumbles. The Bills turn that into a touchdown. Josh Allen connects with Matt Collins for a 1-yard touchdown. That was on 4th and goal. And Bass ended up missing the PAT. So it was 12-10. Dolphins then respond with a field goal. Jason Sanders from 23 yards out. So that made it 13-12. And then the Bills, they responded with another touchdown drive. They went 2 plays, 70 yards. Josh Allen connected with Ray Davis, the other running back, for a 63-yard touchdown. And that made it 20-13. Dolphins tied the game. They went for it on 4th down. They got it. Tua scrambled for 4 yards. Ended up getting it. And you want to look away when he takes off with the ball, but he ended up picking up the first down. And then Achane scored from 8 yards out to make it 20-20. Bills then put together another touchdown drive. So this game was back and forth in the second half. And then Josh Allen connected with Morris for a 2-yard touchdown. And that made it 27-20. Dolphins then responded again. Tua connecting with Jalen Waddle for a 7-yard touchdown. And then the Bills go 9 plays, 27 yards. They get to the Dolphins' 43, and Tyler Bass makes a 61-yard field goal. And he had to feel pretty good because you remember from last year in the divisional round, he missed the potential game-tying field goal against the Chiefs. And it was a long offseason for him. But, just to at least make this kick in a big moment, that had to feel pretty good. And it was a 61-yarder. I mean, I know kickers make it like it's nothing now, but still, I mean, that's not an easy kick to make. And he ended up making it. And the Dolphins, they try the lateral game. So they lateral it to Tua connects with Achane, throws it to Achane. Then he laterals it to Waddle, and Waddle loses 23 yards on the play. He ends up getting tackled, and that's how the game ends. And the Dolphins are now 2-6. The Bills are now 7-2. And it's unfortunate for the Dolphins because offensively, they have looked better. I keep saying it. They have looked better. The problem is they lost both games. You lose last week, you had a 10-point lead. You blow that, you lose by a point. And then this week, your offense goes back and forth with the Bills, and you end up losing on a 60-yard field goal, 61-yard field goal. And you're 2-6 now. You're in third place in your division. And, towards the end of the year, you got some tough games coming up on the schedule. It's just, the Dolphins look like they're going nowhere this year. And I'm curious to see what ends up happening from this. Are there going to be any massive changes? I mean, you can't really blame Tua. I mean, I think Tua's been fine. But I think I did bring this up, though, last week. So, I mean, we'll see, if they make any kind of drastic changes. But, yeah, they're 2-6. And this division is pretty much over, this race. The Bills are running away with this thing. They got one of the best records in the NFL right now. They're at 7-2. We'll see what happens tonight if the Chiefs maybe lose to the Buccaneers. We'll get into it. We'll get into it. But right now they're the 2 seed, and it's probably where they're going to stay unless the Ravens overtake them, because the Ravens did beat them earlier this year. But the Bills are good at home. Their only 2 losses are on the road. And next week they take on the Colts, and then, we get to the tough part of their schedule. Because after the Colts game, you got the Chiefs, then out of the bye, you got the Niners, the Rams, and the Lions in Detroit. And that's a 4:25 game. So, we'll see what the Bills are made of here. But, we saw them play against the Texans and against the Ravens, and they lost both of those games. Now, the Texans game was more competitive. Now, the Texans, they don't really seem as good as their record shows. Partly because of injuries. And the Ravens just, other than the Chiefs, the Ravens beat everybody. And the Raiders. The Ravens beat everybody. And I forgot the game that I was at. They lost to the Browns. But that was a trap game. So the Bills are going to make the playoffs. They're going to win this division. They're going to host a playoff game. And if they're, the 2 seed, they'll host a couple of playoff games. But, yeah, offense is doing well. Josh Allen, 3 more touchdown passes. Did throw a pick, but he's got 17 touchdowns and 2 picks. It's pretty good. And, threw for 235 yards. James Cook, only 44 yards on the ground as their leading rusher. And Ray Davis actually turned out to be their leading receiver. That 63-yard touchdown reception, was pretty much all of his receiving yards. Khalil Shakir had 6 for 50. Dalton Kincaid, 4 for 32. Matt Collins, 5 for 30 and a touchdown. James Cook, 5 for 25. And the Bills, they only got to Tua once. So Tua, did not really get sacked in this game. Only one time. And same thing for the Dolphins defense. Only 1 sack of Josh Allen. But yeah, Dolphins are 2-6. Just doesn't seem like this season's going anywhere, even with Tua being back. And again, it's unfortunate because these games definitely could have been won. And, you win those 2 and you're at sorry, I just hit my cup. My Giants cup, actually, that I had because I needed to have some water with me. But we'll get to that game tomorrow, possibly. You win those 2 games, you're 4-4, and, now it's like, okay, let's make a run here. But 2-6, it's hard to come out of that. And like I said, they do have tough games remaining on their schedule. So the Dolphins look like their season is unfortunately over. I mean, it's not technically, but these last 2 weeks they lost in heartbreaking fashion, and especially the loss yesterday. So I don't know really know where they go from here. I mean, they're still going to win football games. I mean, this team is not going to just finish with 2 wins. They will win games, but it's not going to be enough. They really. I said this, I think at some point, maybe it's going to be a reverse where they start off slow and then they finish strong. It's possible. But it's just, 2-6 at this point. And, you look at the teams you got to jump over and, the division is just all but out of the question. Now you're just hoping that, you get a few breaks and maybe you find yourself back in the wild card. doesn't seem like that's going to happen. So, but let me know what you guys think about this game. What were your takeaways from it? Again, Tua did not play bad, but it just wasn't enough. And the Dolphins, like I said, they end up losing a tough one. Bills, they keep rolling. So, but I want to see what they're made of when we get to that part of their schedule. After the Colts game, and the Colts is not going to be an easy game. They lost last night to the Vikings, but, Joe Flacco, Joe Flacco was not great last night either, but, the Colts are a different team with Flacco, and I think that being a home game for the Colts, that's gonna be a tough game for the Bills. So this stretch of games coming up between now and after the bye, it's going to show me what the Bills really are. And we saw earlier in the season when the Ravens smacked them around, how they played against them. But let's see how they are. Let's see if they can redeem themselves. Let's see what they could do against this better competition here. And even against a divisional opponent, it was tough, but they came away with the win. So, but yeah, let me know what you guys think about this game. What were your takeaways from it? So when we come back, we'll talk about the Cowboys dropping to 3-5 after their most recent loss to the Falcons. So make sure to stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast.
For the best and latest podcasts available anywhere, go to the podcast app on your cell phone and type in GSMC to access free content-rich podcasts on health and wellness, book reviews, sports, entertainment, relationships, social media, movies, technology, finance, and even weird news. Subscribe and download the GSMC Podcast Network's family of shows, available everywhere podcasts are found.
All right, and we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for the fourth part of the show, we're going to now get into talking about the Cowboys-Falcons game. Falcons getting the win, 27-21. Kirk Cousins, 3 touchdown passes in this game. And yeah, this was not a good game for the Cowboys. Not a good game. For a couple of things. They were undisciplined. Questionable decisions, and injuries. Dak Prescott left the game with a hamstring injury. It was a non-contact injury. I thought he got hit, got tackled the wrong way, whatever. No, he was going to throw a pass. He planted his foot, I guess, in an awkward way, and he left the game with a hamstring injury, and also had a hand injury as well. So we don't know what the extent of that is. Could be missing a period of time. We'll have to, when we get the details of that, I'll make sure to break it down. But this was not a good game for them. The Cowboys, they were coming off a loss against the 49ers. They've lost 3 in a row now. Their 3 wins are against the Giants, the Browns, and they beat the Steelers in Pittsburgh, but the Steelers should have won that game. And that was an ugly game. I was not impressed by that win. But, these last 3 games, they lost against better competition. They are just not the team that they were last year. Now, partly, again, it's because of injuries, but they're just not a good team. They are not a good team this year. They have so many issues. And it's not like Dak Prescott's been playing well. He has 11 touchdowns to 8 picks. That's not that good. And CeeDee Lamb also got banged up in this game too. It's just, it looks like a lost season for the Cowboys. There's definitely going to be changes after this year. And Jerry Jones spoke after the game, and, he said that they're, going to try to make some moves. At least that's what he was saying to the media. It seemed like, he was saying, hey, we're going to make moves to try to improve this team before the trade deadline. I really don't know what move you can make to improve this team. There's just so many things wrong. Now, you're going to get guys back. You're going to get Deron Bland back. You're going to get DeMarcus Lawrence back. You're going to get Micah Parsons back. But is that going to be enough? And it's crazy to say that because, these guys that are coming back are good football players. They are really good football players. But the defense, Deron Bland's been out the whole year so far, but even with Micah Parsons and DeMarcus Lawrence, the defense was not playing well. And on top of that, you can't run the football. And Ezekiel Elliott was inactive for this game, was missing, meetings and practice. And, the two sides made the decision, it's probably best you don't play in this game this weekend. And he's looked at as supposedly one of the leaders of this team, and he's out. So there's another issue there. And, I was watching, some clips from Get Up with Mike Greenberg and Dan Orlovsky and Rex Ryan. And next season, I think Dak Prescott and CeeDee Lamb are going to account for, I think they said 46% of the Cowboys salary cap. Dak Prescott is going to have like a $90 million cap hit. Pretty much. The Cowboys are not in a good spot right now. They're not. And it's just, who knows if it's going to get better. And you see what Washington looks like right now. And look, the Eagles, we'll talk about their game at some point this week, but they almost blew a 22-0 lead to the Jaguars. But they're 6-2. Cowboys are, and if it wasn't for the Giants, the Cowboys would be the worst team in the division right now. So, and yesterday, they go for, they do a fake punt, and they end up not getting it. And it's like, why don't you just put the ball in the hands of your quarterback to try to go and make a play instead of doing that? It's just, and Mike McCarthy's throwing down the tablet. He's probably gone after this year. It's a mess right now with the Cowboys. But to kind of go through the game summary, so the Falcons got the ball. They punted to start the game. And then the Cowboys put together a nice drive. They go 7 plays, 59 yards. They get down to the Falcons' 16-yard line, and we get a field goal from Brandon Aubrey, a 34-yarder. So that made it 3-0 Cowboys. Falcons then responded, 7 plays, 78 yards down the field. Kirk Cousins connects with Drake London, who got hurt in this game, for a 9-yard touchdown, so that made it 7-3. The Cowboys punted, and then Kirk Cousins got sacked, lost the ball, and the Cowboys recovered, but then they turned it over on downs. They tried a run with CeeDee Lamb, and he ended up getting tackled. Turnover on downs. Then the Falcons put together another touchdown drive. On 4th and 3, Kirk Cousins connects with Darnell Mooney for a 36-yard touchdown. So that made it 14-3. Cowboys then put together a touchdown drive. They went 9 plays, 70 yards, almost 4.5 minutes of time of possession, and Dak Prescott connected with Rico Dowdle to make it 14-10. Falcons punted. Cowboys turned it over on downs. Then they turned it over on downs to start the third quarter. They went for a fake punt, didn't get it, and the Falcons capitalized on it. Kirk Cousins connected with Ray McLeod for an 11-yard touchdown, so it was 21-10. Then both teams punted. Aubrey kicked another field goal, a 57-yard field goal, so that made it 21-13. Then the Falcons scored another touchdown. Tyler Algier, a 6-yard touchdown. They went for 2. They did not get it. More punts. Cowboys turned it over on downs. They did score a touchdown, and this was with Cooper Rush at quarterback. He connected with Jalen Tolbert for a 4-yard touchdown. But the Falcons were able to ice the game. Cowboys went for the onside kick, and they didn't get it. So they fall to 3-5 on the season. Dak Prescott, 18 of 24, 133 yards, 1 touchdown, no interceptions. Cooper Rush almost threw for more yards than him. He went 13 of 25 for 115 yards and a touchdown. Rico Dowdle, 12 carries for 75 yards. Dalvin Cook only had 2 for 8. Jacob Ferguson was their leading receiver, 7 receptions for 71 yards. CeeDee Lamb, 8 for 47. He had a big day last week and really did not do much in this game. Couple of sacks by the Cowboys defense. And then Kirk Cousins, 19 of 24, 222 yards, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. He's been good the last 2 weeks. Maybe is this where the Falcons get it going, or we're gonna go back to being inconsistent? They're 6-3 right now. They're sitting in a good spot. They ran the ball for 100 yards on the dot. Bijan Robinson had 86 on the ground. Algier had 18 with a touchdown. Darnell Mooney, 5 for 88 and a touchdown. Bijan Robinson also had 7 receptions for 59 yards. Ray-Ray McCloud, 3 for 28 and a touchdown. Drake London, like I said, got hurt. 2 for 27 and a touchdown. Kyle Pitts, only 1 for 11. Kirk Cousins, a couple of fumbles. He only did lose 1. 3 sacks of the Cowboys in this game by the Falcons defense. But they improved to 6-3. So, right now they're in the driver's seat. And if the Bucs lose tonight, it just, to me, the division's over. If the Bucs lose tonight. The Falcons, their schedule is not that bad. They have a couple of tough games on the road, but for the most part, I do think that they'll be fine. They'll get to the 10 wins and they'll win the division. That's what I had them at. I had them at 10-7. So they're heading in the right direction. The Cowboys they aren't. And there's going to be, like I said, there's going to be a lot of changes. Well, I shouldn't say a lot, but I mean, at least when it comes to the head coach, that's where it's going to start. And I mean, I don't know what they're going to do. But like I said, Jerry Jones did make some comments to the media that maybe that there's going to be moves on the way. I don't know what exactly, but it's just not a good season for them. I was blind to the fact that they're a good regular season team. They'll get their 11 wins and they'll make the playoffs, and then they'll get knocked down in the first round. They're not even going to sniff the playoffs the way they're playing. And you got Philadelphia next week. You still haven't even played the Commanders yet. I mean, you're probably going to lose. You're going to get swept by both of them. And especially with that, well, who knows? We'll see how Cooper Rush plays. I mean, Cooper Rush, when he filled in a couple of years ago, he did a nice job, but I don't think it's just a Dak Prescott problem. It's a lot of different things. They can't run the football. The defense is not playing well. They're undisciplined. It's all these different things. It's a combination, similar to what the Jets are right now. But what the Jets did come off a win against the Houston Texans. The Cowboys, they haven't even won a home game this year. And the Cowboys are a team that always defends their home turf. They have not won a single home game this year. They lost to the Ravens. They lost to the Saints. They lost to the Lions. Talk about not defending your home turf. Am I missing one more? Yeah. 0-3 at home. Then they got the Eagles and the Texans coming in. And the Texans are going to get Nico Collins back next week. So you could be 3-7. It's not looking good. Not looking good for the Cowboys. And, you paid your star players, but your star players are going to kind of, in a way, prohibit you from, making other moves. There's a lot. When you got 2 guys that are going to be making up 46% of your salary cap, and on top of that, your best defensive player is going to be looking to get paid, they're in trouble. They're in trouble. And look, Cowboy fans know what needs to be done. There's things that they want to be done that probably not. Things are not going to happen. Maybe Jerry Jones steps down, but it's not going to happen because they want that. Now, could they go out and bring in a Mike Vrabel or a Bill Belichick after the year? Because Belichick could end up being the guy that's brought into Dallas. It seems like that could happen. And would that change things? It definitely would, because the defense would not be playing like this. The defense would be better. I mean, look at what Jim Harbaugh has done with the Chargers. The Chargers defense was one of the worst defenses in the league last year, and now it's a pretty good defense. It's a pretty good defense, and they're sitting in a playoff spot right now. Jim Harbaugh's a good coach. Now Bill Belichick, obviously his resume is a lot better than Jim Harbaugh's, and I know things didn't pan out towards the end of his tenure in New England, but Bill Belichick definitely could change things in a positive way for the Cowboys. Now, as a Giant fan, I don't want to see him go to Dallas, but that could be where he ends up. That could definitely be where he ends up. It's looking more likely, unless the Cowboys turn it around and, they go all the way to the Super Bowl and win it, which is not going to happen. Mike McCarthy is definitely out after this year. I would be shocked if he comes back next year. I would be shocked. But then again, you see how long the Cowboys held on to Jason Garrett, so like anything is possible. But when you got Bill Belichick out there, though, I think the Cowboys are going to want to try to lure him in and cut ties with Mike McCarthy. So, but it's just not looking good for them. 3-5. Now, we don't know what the extent of the Dak Prescott injury is. Let's take a little quick look on social media and see if there's any updates. But now with Dak Prescott being out, I mean, it's what are we doing? So, gonna take a quick look, see if there's any updates. So yeah, he'll undergo an MRI in his hamstring. So right now, yeah, we don't have any idea. But I would expect him to miss, the next several weeks. I'm just gonna make that assumption. He's gonna miss at least some time. And at that point, it's like, if the Cowboys are out of it, do you even bring him back and just Cooper Rush finish out the year? It's going to be interesting, but yeah, right now it's not good. It's not looking good for them. But for the Falcons, they're maybe hitting their stride. Maybe they've won their last two. They're depending on what the Bucs do tonight, this division looks like it's going to be theirs. Because the Saints and the Panthers, they're out. It's just between those two. And unfortunately for the Bucs, I mean, they're just dealing with a ton of injuries. If you had a healthy Chris Godwin and a healthy Mike Evans, I would feel differently, but they don't. And I unfortunately don't think this game tonight is going to go well for them. I'd be surprised if they won. But we will get into it, because speaking of that, we will take our last break of the show, and then when we come back, we will preview tonight's game between the Chiefs and the Buccaneers, talk about who wins, all that, when we return. So, for one final time today, stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. All right, and we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast, and for the final part of the show, we're going to get into talking about the Chiefs-Buccaneers game for tonight that will end off Week 9 in the NFL. The Chiefs right now, undefeated on the season, the only remaining undefeated team of the season, and the Buccaneers are a even 4-4, and their season has taken a turn for the worst. They were looking good to start off the year. Baker Mayfield was playing well, and he's still, putting up numbers. It's just the turnovers have become an issue. That's especially these last two games. That's been a problem, and they got to cut down on. He's got to cut down on the interceptions. Right now, 21 touchdowns to 9 picks. I mean, that's good. But the last 2 weeks, I mean, what did he have? He had 3 last week, or 2 last week, and then 3 the week before that. It hasn't been great. The turnovers have not been good for Baker. Actually, no, he threw 3 against the Saints. He threw 2 against the Ravens, and then he threw 2 last week against the Falcons. But with that being said, though, he threw for over 300 yards in every single game. And he had 4 touchdowns against the Saints, 3 against the Ravens, and then 3 against the Falcons. So it's kind of like Jameis Winston, basically. Putting up a lot of yards, throwing touchdowns, but also throwing interceptions. And Jameis had a rough day yesterday after the game I saw where he was great. But he played against a good defense. But yeah, the Bucs are 4-4 right now. And the comparison between the two quarterbacks. So Baker Mayfield, 2,189 passing yards, 21 touchdowns, 9 picks, right? Patrick Mahomes, 1,651 passing yards. He's got 9 picks as well, but he has 8 touchdown passes. Like, what is going on? But, like, you would see that, and you would think, oh, Chiefs are not having a good year, right? They have the best record in the NFL. They are the only remaining undefeated team. They're still winning games. And they've had injuries, but you know what? They go in, they bring guys back that they used to have, in previous years. They bring back Juju Smith-Schuster, and they bring back Kareem Hunt. Last year they traded for Mecole Hardman and brought him back in. They bring guys that know how to run this system. And Kareem Hunt has done a nice job. Juju is banged up, so they went out and they traded for DeAndre Hopkins, who only had 2 catches last week, but it seems like they're trying to get him more involved today. And the Bucs defense has not been good in recent weeks. So, this could be a get right game for Patrick Mahomes in that offense. And also Travis Kelce had a good game too, and he scored a touchdown. So that combined with the Chiefs being backed by one of the best defenses in the league, look, the Chiefs are going to figure it out offensively. They're going to get Isaiah Pacheco back at some point. He might be coming back late November, it seems. So they're going to get healthy. And look, maybe they don't figure it out in the regular season. Maybe they continue to struggle and, they get their 12 wins, their 13 wins. I don't think they're going to go undefeated, but they still can. Even if the offense doesn't look crisp by the time we get to January, they'll figure it out in the playoffs because they always do. Last year, again, was a great example of they just did not play well offensively. They were not consistent, but you got to the playoffs and they flipped that switch. They flipped it, and they looked like a different team because they know how to show up when we get to the postseason. So I'm not worried about that. I mean, yeah, the offense is struggling, but you could have your concerns, but they're 7-0. There's if they were at this point, if they were 3-4, 4-4, if they were 4-4, like the Bucs, then yeah, you got some things, maybe there's a little bit more worries to be had, but they're 7-0, and they're going to be getting some guys back. So I'm not worried about them. They're going to figure it out. And I feel like in years past, not even just last year, there have been other years where oh man, what's going on with the Chiefs? But then they figure it out and they make it to the AFC Championship game. Their floor is the AFC Championship game. And then their ceiling is holding up the Lombardi Trophy with Patrick Mahomes, Andy Reid, Travis Kelce, and those guys. They have been in the AFC Championship game every year that Mahomes has been a starter. And it's probably going to happen again. Because right now they got home field advantage. Last year they didn't have home field advantage. Now this year, right now at this moment, they have home field advantage. And if they beat the Texans and they beat the Bills, they got the Bills coming up on their schedule. They got the Texans later on. They beat those two teams, yeah, they're definitely going to get it. They already beat the Ravens to start off the year. Kind of wish that game took place later, later in the season. But yeah, this is how it's set up. And I think they win tonight. I think they win by multiple scores. This is a tough game for Baker Mayfield and the Bucs. Going through the league rankings, the Bucs are second in passing yards per game. They're averaging 273.6 passing yards per game. The Chiefs' offense is averaging 235.9. Rushing yards per game, the Buccaneers are 10th. Chiefs are 14th. Points per game, Bucs offense is third, averaging 29.4, and the Chiefs offense is averaging 24.7, which is 11th. And then defensively, the Chiefs, beat the Bucs defense in the main categories. Against the pass, the Chiefs are 12th, giving up an average of 220.4. Bucs defense is 30th. So like I said, this is a game that Mahomes and that offense could really get it going tonight. Rushing yards, the Chiefs are third at stopping the run. They're giving up an average of 82.3, and the Bucs are giving up an average of 131.6. And Kareem Hunt, look, he's not the same player he was back in 2017 and 2018, but he can get those tough yards, and, at the goal line, the Chiefs are going to use him especially. And then points allowed, the Chiefs' defense is third, and the Bucs are 27th. So it's just, defensively, it just all favors the Chiefs. And, they're favored by 9 in this game. I like them to win. I think they put up 30 points in this game. I'm going to say they win 31-17. I'm going to say that's the final score. They win by at least 2 scores. Like I said, I think this is the week to get it going. They're going to get DeAndre Hopkins more involved, like I said. Travis Kelce's been looking good these last couple weeks. Especially with Rashid Rice being out, they got to rely on their other guys. And, Kelce, like I said, he found the end zone last week. So, I expect him to maybe get into the end zone tonight. Hopefully they don't do that good because I'm playing my sister in fantasy and I have Kareem Hunt and I have Kareem Hunt in the Chiefs defense and she has Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce. So that could go either way. Right now, as the matchup currently stands, it is 118-93. So I get 10 points right off the bat, 28. And I expect the defense to get after Baker Mayfield, maybe create some turnovers. And Kareem Hunt, I expect to, have a decent game. But Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce could also have big games. And, Mahomes could finish with like 30 points. Travis Kelce could finish with 20. And I end up losing. So that matchup's not over. And then in my other matchup, I'm up 96-78. And my opponent has Cade Otton and Harrison Butker left. So I need the Bucs to just throw it. I need, Baker to throw it to Trey Palmer and Sterling Shepard and McMillan and, rely on the running game. If they can establish the run, just don't throw it to Cade Otton and Harrison Butker just kick extra points tonight. And Kareem Hunt scores a bunch of touchdowns. Because then if everything goes well, I would go 4-1 in fantasy this week. And most of my teams will be 4-5. One will be at 3-6. One of my dynasty leagues, and then I think I'll be 6-2 in another, or 7-2. So, yeah, I haven't been great this year. Been about middle of the pack. Been about average. But yeah, I'll be 7-2 in my other league after this week, my ESPN league. I got 4 leagues on Sleeper and then 1 on ESPN. So it was a rough week in the spread pool too. The most I can get, if the Chiefs win and cover, I'll get 6 for the week, which, doesn't surprise me at this point. But yeah, I got the Chiefs winning 31-17. I think this could be a game that the offense gets it going. If not, then I guess they're just going to struggle the whole year. Yeah, I like either way. I like the Chiefs to win, and the Bucs will unfortunately suffer another loss. So, but let me know what you guys think about this game. Who do you think wins? Let me know in the comments. So that is pretty much it for the show for today. Thank you guys for tuning in. Make sure to check out all the other shows on the network. Give the other shows some love, like I always say. We'll be back again tomorrow to recap this game and the other games that I didn't get a chance to talk about today. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe to the video. And until next time, I'm Kenneth Grunfelder signing off from the GSMC Football Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. Have a good day. Enjoy the game tonight, and I will talk to you guys tomorrow. Take care.
Let's go. I wake up to a little bit of drool on my pillow, feel like it's gonna be a bad day. Yeah, I'm tired of shit, and the coffee ain't hit yet, damn, ain't that great.